The Grand Conclave Station hung in the darkness of space like a massive metal flower. Its petals were docking bays where ships from 100 worlds came and went. At its center stood the Great Hall, where the Galactic Assembly met to decide the fate of civilizations. Ambassador Elena Vasquez watched it grow larger through the window of her shuttle. She had made this journey many times before, but something felt different today. "Ambassador, we dock in 10 minutes, her aide said from behind her. Elena nodded but did not turn around. She was 53 years old, with gray streaks in her dark hair and lines around her eyes from years of forcing smiles at beings who looked down on her species. Humanity had joined the Galactic Compact 80 years ago. In all that time, they had never been treated as equals. They were the new species, the young ones, the primitives who had barely learned to walk among the stars. She straightened her uniform and prepared herself for another day of quiet insults. The Great Hall was enormous. Its ceiling stretched so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. Hundreds of platforms floated at different levels, each one carrying delegates from different worlds. The Keva sat highest as always. Their purple skin and forearms made them look like statues carved from amethyst. They had ruled the Compact for 3,000 years, and they never let anyone forget it. Elena took her place on humanity's platform. It was positioned low, near the back, where important species would not have to look at them. She folded her hands and waited for the session to begin. The assembly chair, a fat Kavith named Dorth, struck his staff against the floor. The sound echoed through the hall. "This centennial gathering is now in session. We recognize the supreme emissary of the Kaveth Dominion, Lord Valeth." A platform rose to the center of the hall. Standing on it was the tallest Kaveth Elena had ever seen. Lord Valeth wore robes of black and gold, and his eyes burned with cold intelligence. He looked around the assembly slowly, letting the silence build. "Fellow members of the Compact," he began. His voice was smooth and deep. "I come before you today to discuss a problem, a sickness that has spread through our great union. I speak of the humans." Elena felt her stomach tighten. Around the hall, delegates turned to look at her platform. Some were curious. Some were amused. None were friendly. "For 80 years, we have tolerated these creatures," Valeth continued. "We have shared our technology with them. We have protected them from dangers they cannot understand. We have treated them as members of this body, even though they are not worthy of that honor." He waved one of his 4 hands, and a massive hologram appeared in the center of the hall. It showed images of humans, but twisted and ugly. Their faces were made to look stupid. Their bodies were shown as weak and sick. "Look at them," Valeth said. "Short-lived, fragile, violent. They fight among themselves like animals. They breed without control. They spread across the stars like a disease." Laughter rippled through the hall. The Turin delegates clicked their mandibles in amusement. Their insect faces showed no mercy. The Torvan, massive creatures with stone-like skin, rumbled with deep chuckles. Even species that had never spoken against humanity before were joining in. Elena stood. "I request the floor to respond to these accusations." The assembly chair did not even look at her. The human delegate is not recognized. The supreme emissary has the floor. More laughter. Elena remained standing, her face like carved ice. Valeth smiled at her. It was the smile of a predator playing with its food. "You see? They do not even understand proper protocol. They think they can interrupt their betters." He turned back to the assembly. "I have prepared a resolution. It is time to put these creatures in their proper place." The hologram changed. Words appeared in a dozen languages. "Resolution 7112, Valeth read. "The human species will surrender the colony worlds of New Singapore, Horizon's Edge, and Kepler's Hope to Compact administration. The human fleet will be reduced by 60%. All human vessels will submit to inspection at any time. And most importantly, humans will accept cultural rehabilitation programs to correct their violent and primitive nature. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. These were not demands. They were chains. If humanity accepted this, they would become slaves in everything but name. Furthermore, Valith added, any human who refuses rehabilitation will be relocated to designated zones for the safety of civilized species. The Silurian elders sat on their platform, ancient and silent. They were the oldest species in the galaxy. They had seen empires rise and fall. They could have spoken against this. They could have reminded the assembly of justice and fairness. But they said nothing. They simply watched with their large, sad eyes. Elena pressed the button to request the floor again. And again. And again. Each time, the assembly chair ignored her. The laughter grew louder. Delegates began throwing things toward her platform. Small objects. Bits of food. Symbolic insults. Let us vote, Valith declared. The vote was not close. Species after species voted in favor of Resolution 7112. Some voted out of hatred. Some voted out of fear of the Kaveth. Some voted simply because it was easy to hurt those who could not fight back. When it was over, only 3 species had voted against the resolution. 3 out of 112. The assembly chair struck his staff. Resolution 7112 is passed. The human delegation will communicate these terms to their government. Compliance is expected within 30 cycles. Elena stood alone on her platform. Her aides had tears in their eyes. Junior diplomats who had spent their careers working for peace were shaking with anger and shame. But Elena's face showed nothing. She had learned long ago to hide her feelings in this place. She looked up at Valith. He was watching her, waiting for her to beg, waiting for her to cry, waiting for the satisfaction of seeing a human broken. Elena pressed her communication button one final time. This time, her voice carried through the entire hall. You have made your decision, she said. Her voice was calm and clear. You have chosen to treat humanity as your enemy. Very well. You will hear from Earth within the cycle. She turned and walked off her platform. Her delegation followed in silence. Behind them, the assembly erupted in more laughter. The Churin made mocking sounds. A Torvan shouted something about teaching the primitives a lesson, but Elena did not look back. She walked with her head high and her back straight. She had delivered a message to the assembly. Now, she would deliver a different message to Earth. As her shuttle departed from the station, she opened a secure channel to the United Earth Government. Her message was short. It has happened. Begin Prometheus. In the Great Hall, the delegates celebrated their easy victory. They had put the humans in their place. They had shown the galaxy that the weak must bow to the strong. They laughed and congratulated themselves and made plans for how they would divide human territory. None of them noticed that every human in the station had quietly left. None of them wondered why the human ambassador had not begged or bargained. None of them thought to ask what Prometheus meant. They would learn soon enough. 3 miles beneath the Swiss Alps, President-Director Marcus Cole sat at the head of a long table. The room was carved from solid rock and lined with screens showing data from across human space. The air was cold and still. 12 people sat around the table, representing the most powerful institutions on Earth. They had been waiting for this meeting for decades. Ambassador Vasquez has confirmed it, Cole said. His voice was quiet but carried the weight of command. He was 61 years old, with white hair and eyes that had seen too much. Resolution 7112 has passed. The compact demands our surrender. General Yuki Tanaka leaned forward. She was the commander of Earth's Fleet Command, a small woman with iron in her spine. What is our timeline? 30 cycles. About 40 Earth days. More than enough, Tanaka said. A thin smile crossed her face. Admiral Chun of Naval Intelligence placed a folder on the table. All human citizens in compact space have received recall orders. Merchants, diplomats, workers, tourists, everyone. They are already moving towards safe zones. The Keveth will notice, said Dr. Amara Asay, head of the Prometheus Division. Her department did not officially exist. It had never appeared in any budget. For 80 years, it had worked in shadows, preparing for exactly this moment. Let them notice, Cole replied. By the time they understand what is happening, it will be too late. He stood and walked to the largest screen. It showed a map of human space, small and cramped compared to the vast territories of the Keveth Dominion. But looks could be deceiving. 80 years ago, humanity made first contact with the compact, Cole said. We were young. We were weak. We had barely developed faster than light travel. The Keveth offered us membership in their union, protection, technology, a place among the stars. He paused. We accepted. We had no choice. The room was silent. Everyone knew this history. But tonight, it needed to be spoken aloud. They gave us technology, Cole continued. Engines that used their jump gates. Weapons that were generations behind their own. Medical science that they considered basic. And we smiled and said, thank you. We bowed and scraped and played the role of grateful primitives. He turned to face the table. His eyes were hard. But we were never primitives. We were survivors. For our entire history, humans have faced extinction. Ice ages, plagues, wars, disasters. We survived them all. And we learned the most important lesson. Never let your enemy know your true strength. Dr. Osei activated a hidden display. The map changed. Hidden installations appeared across human space. Secret shipyards in asteroid belts. Research stations in empty systems. Weapons platforms disguised as mining operations. The true extent of human preparation was revealed. For 80 years, the Prometheus Division has developed technology in secret, Asay explained. While we gave the compact our inferior inventions, we kept the real advances hidden. We have FTL drives that do not require jump gates. We have weapons based on physics the compact has never explored. We have artificial intelligence systems for warfare, nanotechnology, genetic enhancement. Everything they feared we might develop, we have developed. General Tanaka stood and gestured at the display. Our official fleet is small. 300 ships registered with the compact. But our true fleet number is over 2,000. Each vessel is designed to fight outnumbered and win. Our soldiers have trained for combat against every known species. We have planned for this war for generations. President Director Cole nodded slowly. The compact thought they were managing a primitive species. They thought they were keeping us weak and dependent. They were wrong. They were feeding a wolf and calling it a dog. The Minister of Communications raised his hand. Sir, when do we make the announcement? Cole checked his watch. Midnight UTC, in 3 hours. The message will be sent simultaneously to every species in the compact. It will be broadcast on every frequency, in every language. There will be no confusion about our intentions. He looked around the table one final time. 80 years of patience. 80 years of insults and humiliation. 80 years of watching our people treated as lesser beings. It ends tonight. Are there any objections? There were none at midnight. The broadcast began. Across the galaxy, communication arrays carried the same message. It reached Keveth warships and Charon hive worlds. It reached space stations and planetary capitals. It reached the Grand Conclave itself, where delegates were still celebrating their victory. The message showed President-Director Cole standing before the flag of United Earth. His voice was calm and formal. To all members of the Galactic Compact, for 80 years, humanity has honored its treaties with your union. We have traded fairly. We have kept the peace. We have asked only to live among you as equals. This request has been denied. Behind him, the flag rippled as if in a wind. Yesterday, your assembly passed Resolution 7112. This resolution demands the surrender of human worlds, the destruction of human ships, and the subjugation of human citizens. We do not accept these terms. We will never accept these terms. His expression did not change, but his voice grew harder. Therefore, the United Earth government hereby withdraws from all treaties, accords, and agreements with the Galactic Compact and its member states. Effective immediately. All human space is now sovereign territory. Any vessel entering without permission will be considered hostile. Any attack on human citizens will be answered with overwhelming force. The broadcast paused for a moment. You called us weak. You called us primitive. You called us vermin. Perhaps you were right. But remember this. Vermin survive. Vermin adapt. And when cornered, vermin bite. The screen went dark dot in the great hall of the assembly. Lord Valeth watched the message with his forearms crossed. When it ended, he laughed. Around him, other Kaveth commanders joined in. They withdraw from treaties? Valeth said. How wonderful. Now we do not need to pretend to be civil. We can simply take what we want. His admiral, a scarred veteran named Korath, nodded in agreement. The human fleet is tiny. We could destroy it in a day. No, Valeth said thoughtfully. We will make an example of them. Mobilize the Fifth Fleet. Send them to the Ashkara system. When the humans see our power at their border, they will come crawling back to beg for mercy. Across the compact, similar conversations took place. Military commanders laughed at human arrogance. Politicians joked about primitive species not knowing their place. News networks broadcast mocking commentary. The Silurian elders said nothing. But in their ancient halls, they looked at each other with worried eyes. They had lived for thousands of years. They had seen young species make grand threats before. But something about the human message troubled them. The humans had not sounded desperate. They had not sounded angry. They had sounded certain. On Earth, the last human transports departed from compact space stations. Merchants sold their goods at any price and fled. Diplomats burned their files and boarded emergency shuttles. Within 48 hours, not a single human remained in compact territory. In the hidden bunker beneath the Alps, President-Director Cole watched the evacuation reports. General Tanaka stood beside him. All civilians are clear, she reported. The Prometheus fleet is moving to position. Captain Okonkwo reports the Prometheus is ready. Cole nodded. Then we begin. God help us all. That has nothing to do with this, Tanaka replied. This is entirely our own work. In the darkness of space, ships that had never appeared on any scanner began to move. They slid through dimensions that the Compact had never discovered. They carried weapons that had never been tested in combat. And at the front of the fleet flew a single vessel, black as night, with the word Prometheus written on its hull in letters of fire. The Compact had made its choice. Now it was time to show them what that choice would cost. The Ashkara system was a fortress. 217 Kaveth warships hung in formation around its central planet, their weapons charged and ready. This was the Fifth Fleet, pride of the Dominion, undefeated in 300 years of warfare. Their shields could withstand nuclear fire. Their cannons could crack moons. Their crews had trained from childhood for combat. Lord Valeth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. He had come personally to witness humanity's destruction. Around him, his officers monitored sensor screens and weapon systems. Everything was ready. Any sign of the humans? Valeth asked. Nothing on the gate monitors, my lord, Admiral Korath replied. They cannot reach this system without using our jump gates. We control every entrance. Valeth smiled. Then we wait. When their pitiful fleet arrives, we will crush them. And then we will burn their colonies one by one until they learn to kneel. An hour passed. Then, too, the Kaveth grew restless. Some wondered if the humans were too afraid to come. Others laughed about primitive species making empty threats. Then the alarms began. A sensor officer screamed in shock. Contact. Single vessel. It appeared directly in the center of our formation. Impossible, Korath snarled. Nothing can enter this system without using the gates. It did not use the gates, the officer replied, his voice shaking. It simply appeared, as if it folded space itself. Valeth rushed to the main view screen. There, floating calmly between his warships, was a single human vessel. It was smaller than his flagship, sleek and black, with no visible weapons ports. The name Isis Prometheus was written on its hull dot. For a long moment. No one spoke. One ship, Valeth finally said. They sent one ship against 200. He began to laugh. The humans are even more foolish than I thought. Destroy it. Before his officers could respond, a transmission came through. A human face appeared on the view screen. He was a dark-skinned man with gray at his temples and calm eyes that held no fear. I am Captain Dimitri Okonkwo of the Earthship Prometheus. To the Kaveth fleet, you have entered a state of war with humanity. You have one opportunity to withdraw from this system peacefully. There will be no second warning. Valeth stared at the screen in disbelief. Then he threw back his head and laughed. His officers joined him, the bridge filling with mocking sounds. One ship threatens 200, Valeth said. Captain, your courage is admirable. Your intelligence is not. You are surrounded. Your vessel will be dust in seconds. Okonkwo's expression did not change. I have delivered my warning. What happens next is your choice. Valeth ended the transmission. All ships, open fire. 217 warships turned their weapons toward the Prometheus. Plasma cannons charged. Missile tubes opened. Energy beams locked onto the tiny human vessel. The first volley was enough firepower to destroy a small moon that it struck empty space. The Prometheus had moved. Not accelerated, not dodged. It had simply been in one place and then was in another, faster than any sensor could track. Track that ship. Korath screamed. Find it. The Prometheus appeared behind a Kaveth destroyer. Something flashed from its hull. The destroyer simply stopped existing. There was no explosion, no debris. The ship and its crew of 3,000 simply vanished, converted into energy that dispersed into the void. Chaos erupted in the Kaveth fleet. Ships tried to turn, to target the enemy. But the Prometheus moved like nothing they had ever seen. It appeared and disappeared at will. It appeared and disappeared at Baird. Each time it appeared, another ship died. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Valeth watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart. The Prometheus was everywhere and nowhere. Their weapons could not hit it. Their shields meant nothing against its attacks. What is this? He whispered. What kind of weapon is this? No one could answer. The technology they were witnessing was beyond anything in Kaveth science. The humans had developed weapons based on principles the Compact had never discovered. They had kept these secrets hidden for 80 years. Smiling and bowing while building instruments of destruction, that could end civilizations. 7 minutes into the battle, the Cavith fleet attempted to retreat. Ships turned toward the jump gate, desperate to escape. The Prometheus let them run. It followed at a distance, picking off vessels one by one, herding them like animals. Admiral Korath grabbed Vailith's arm. "My lord, we must escape. The flagship must survive." Vailith could not move. He could not think. His entire understanding of the universe was crumbling. The humans were supposed to be weak, primitive, inferior. But this single ship was destroying the greatest fleet his people had ever assembled. "My lord." Korath shouted again. Vailith finally turned. His face was pale, his forearms trembling. "Run. All ships run." 11 minutes after the battle began, it was over. 183 Cavith warships had been destroyed. The remaining 34 had escaped through the jump gate, damaged and terrified. The Prometheus floated alone in a field of debris, completely undamaged. Captain Okonkwo recorded a message and broadcast it on all frequencies. "This is the East Prometheus. Let this serve as a demonstration of humanity's capabilities. We do not wish for war. We do not seek destruction. But we will not be threatened. We will not be humiliated. And we will not be conquered. To the Galactic Compact, our terms are simple. A full apology for Resolution 7112. Reparations for 80 years of unfair treaties. Recognition of human sovereignty. Accept these terms, and there will be peace. Refuse, and there will be consequences." The message spread across the galaxy within hours. News networks that had mocked humanity fell silent. Military commanders who had laughed at human threats watched the battle footage with growing dread. Politicians who had voted for Resolution 7112 began to fear for their lives. In the Grand Conclave, the Assembly met in emergency session. The chamber that had been filled with laughter days before was now filled with fear. Delegates shouted at each other, demanding explanations. How had the humans developed such technology? How had they hidden it for so long? What else did they have? Lord Vailith was not present. He was on his damaged flagship, racing back to Cavith space. He had seen the impossible. He had watched his fleet die in minutes. And he knew that if humanity chose to attack the homeworld, there was nothing that could stop them. The Silurian elders finally spoke. Their ancient voices echoed through the silent chamber. "We warned you. Centuries ago, when humans first reached the stars, we saw something in them. A fire that burned differently than other species. A capacity for both creation and destruction that was unprecedented. We told you to treat them with respect. You did not listen." The elders' huge eyes swept across the assembly. You poked at a sleeping creature because it seemed weak. You mocked it because it did not bare its teeth. You pushed it into a corner and laughed at its growls. And now it has awakened. And now you are afraid. No one dared to respond. "The humans are not our enemies," the elder continued. "They never were. We made them into enemies. We did this to ourselves. And now we must face the consequences of our arrogance." On the Cavith homeworld, emergency sessions were called. The Dominion had not lost a major battle in 3 centuries. The destruction of the Fifth Fleet was not just a military defeat. It was a psychological catastrophe. Citizens demanded answers. Generals blamed each other. The government struggled to maintain control, but they refused to surrender. Pride would not allow it. Fear would not allow it. If they submitted to human demands, they would appear weak before the entire galaxy. Other species might rebel. Their empire might crumble. So they chose war. Across Cavith space, shipyards worked at maximum capacity. 2,000 warships were mobilized. All eyes were called upon. The Churin swarm pledged their fleets. 3 smaller species, seeing a chance to profit from the conflict, joined the alliance. they would not make the same mistake twice. This time, they would come with overwhelming numbers. This time, they would not underestimate their enemy. On Earth, General Tanaka received intelligence reports on the Kaveth mobilization. She smiled. "They are doing exactly what we expected," she said. "They cannot accept defeat. Their pride will not allow them to think clearly." President Director Cole stood beside her, watching the tactical displays. "How long until our fleet is fully deployed?" 48 hours. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier, we have prepared for this moment. Cole nodded slowly. "Then we end this. Not with genocide, not with cruelty, but with such complete victory that no one ever threatens humanity again." In her quarters aboard a transport heading back to Earth, Ambassador Elena Vasquez watched the news feeds. The galaxy was changing. Everything was changing. And she knew that the hardest part was still to come. Winning a war was simple. Building a lasting peace was much harder. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Today, humanity had shown its teeth. And the galaxy would never look at them the same way again. The Kaveth Grand Armada was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. 2,000 warships from the Dominion formed its core, their hulls gleaming with weapons designed to crack planets. The Turan swarm added 800 vessels, insectoid ships that moved in perfect coordination like a single organism. 300 ships from minor powers completed the force. Over 3,000 warships in total, carrying millions of soldiers, armed with enough firepower to burn a dozen worlds. Grand Admiral Thelax commanded from his massive dreadnought, the Eternal Conquest. He was not like Valeth. He did not underestimate his enemy. He had studied the footage from Ashkara. He had analyzed every moment of the Prometheus's attacks. He knew that the humans had technology beyond anything the Compact possessed, but numbers still mattered. One ship could not be everywhere. One ship could not protect every human colony. One ship could not fight 3,000. "Begin the advance," Thelax ordered. "We move toward Earth's outer colonies. Burn everything in our path." The Armada jumped through space, emerging near the first human colony world, New Singapore. It was a peaceful planet of farmers and fishermen, home to 12 million people. Thelax intended to make an example of it. "All ships, prepare to bombard," he commanded. "Leave nothing alive." The weapons never fired. Space around the Armada twisted. Ships appeared from nowhere, emerging from folds and dimensions that Kaveth science could not detect. Not one ship, not 10. 300 human vessels materialized in perfect formation, surrounding the Armada like wolves surrounding sheep. Each human ship was a masterwork of hidden technology. Their hulls seemed to absorb light itself. Their weapons glowed with energies that made sensors scream warnings. They moved without visible engines, sliding through space as if physics itself bent to their will. And at their center floated the Prometheus. Captain Okonkwo's voice echoed through every speaker in the Armada. "Grand Admiral Thelax, your fleet is surrounded. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your shields will not protect you. Surrender now, and your crews will be spared." Thelax's 4 hands gripped his command chair. He had expected reinforcements. He had expected a desperate defense. He had not expected to be trapped. "We will never surrender to humans," he replied. "All ships, attack." The Battle of New Singapore lasted 4 hours. It felt like 4 years. Human ships moved like ghosts, appearing and disappearing at will. Their weapons ignored shields entirely, striking directly at reactors and life support systems. Kaveth vessels died by the dozens, then by the hundreds. The Turan tried to swarm, sending waves of ships against single human targets. The human vessels simply phased through them, reappearing behind to deliver killing blows. But the humans did not simply destroy. They were surgical, precise. Ships that surrendered were disabled, not killed. Escape pods were allowed to flee. Vessels carrying wounded were given safe passage. Even in war, the humans showed mercy. By the second hour, the Turan fleet broke. They turned and ran, abandoning their Kaveth allies. Grand Admiral Thelax watched his coalition crumble. The minor species fled next, their ships scattering in all directions. "Hold the line," Thelax screamed. "We are Kaveth. We do not run." But his officers saw what he refused to see. They were not fighting a battle. They were being slaughtered. One by one, Kaveth captains began surrendering their vessels. The mighty armada, pride of the Dominion, melted away like snow in summer. On Charm Prime, something unexpected happened. As the swarm surviving ships returned home, human vessels appeared in orbit. But they did not attack. Instead, they broadcast a message. It was a recording of private communications between the Charn Queen and her advisors, obtained from captured ships. In the recording, the Queen discussed her secret plan. After humanity was destroyed, the Turan would turn on the weakened Kaveth. They would claim Kaveth territory for themselves. They had never been loyal allies. They were vultures, waiting to feast on the scraps. The recording spread across Turan society. High factions that had long resented the Queen saw their chance. Within days, the Turan swarm descended into civil war. They would be fighting each other for months, too busy to threaten anyone else. The humans had defeated an enemy without firing a shot. On the Kaveth homeworld, panic spread. The Grand Armada was gone. The Turan allies had turned on themselves. The minor powers had surrendered to humanity and begged for forgiveness. The Dominion stood alone. Then the planetary defense grid went offline. Every weapon platform, every shield generator, every orbital fortress simply stopped working. Engineers screamed at their consoles, trying to understand what had happened. The systems had been sabotaged. But how? When? The answer came from Earth. 80 years ago, when the Kaveth had graciously shared their defense technology with humanity, human engineers had hidden back doors in every system they helped install. For 8 decades, those back doors had waited, dormant and undetected. Now they had been activated. The Kaveth homeworld was defenseless. Billions of people looked up at the sky, waiting for human warships to appear, waiting for the bombs to fall, waiting for extinction. The warships never came. Instead, a single message was broadcast across the planet. Captain Okonkwo's face appeared on every screen. People of the Kaveth Dominion, your government chose war. Your military has been destroyed. Your allies have abandoned you. Your defenses are gone. We could end your civilization in hours. He paused, letting the words sink in. We choose not to. Humanity does not seek genocide. We do not want slaves or subjects. We want peace. True peace. But peace requires accountability. The message changed to show Lord Valeth. He was in chains, aboard a human vessel, surrounded by guards. His fine robes were torn. His proud face was pale with fear. Your leader must answer for his crimes, Okonkwo continued. Not just crimes against humanity, but crimes against dozens of species your Dominion has oppressed. There will be trials. There will be justice. But there will be mercy for those who did not choose this path. On a damaged Kaveth cruiser, Lord Valeth had been captured trying to flee. Human marines had boarded his vessel with terrifying efficiency. Their powered armor made them seem like giants. Their weapons cut through Kaveth soldiers like paper. Valeth had been brought before Captain Okonkwo. He had expected execution. He had expected torture. Instead, he found himself facing a calm man who looked at him with something that might have been pity. You called us vermin, Okonkwo said quietly. You should have studied Earth's history more carefully. Vermin survive ice ages. Vermin survive plagues. Vermin survive everything the universe throws at them. And when they are cornered, they fight with everything they have. Velith's voice was a whisper. What will you do to my people? Nothing they have not done to others. Your colonies will keep their freedom. Your citizens will keep their lives. But your empire? Your dominion over other species. That is over. You will be one voice among many, not a master with slaves. In the Grand Conclave, the Silurian elders received a delegation from Earth. Not soldiers. Not threats. Just diplomats, led by Ambassador Elena Vasquez. We seek peace, she told the elders. Lasting peace. Not the false peace of the old compact, where strong nations crushed weak ones. True equality. True cooperation. The senior elder studied her with ancient eyes. You could rule the galaxy. Your technology is beyond anything we possess. Why do you seek partnership instead of dominion? Vasquez was silent for a moment. Because we are not like you. We have seen what empires do. We have built them ourselves on our own world. We know how they end. In blood. In fire. In ruins. She shook her head. We want something better. Something that lasts. And if we refuse, then we will leave you alone. We will protect ourselves and our allies. We will trade with those who wish to trade. But we will not force anyone to join us. She met the elder's gaze. We are done being victims, but we have no desire to become villains. The elder was quiet for a long time. Then, slowly, the ancient being bowed its massive head. Perhaps, it said, we underestimated you in more ways than one. The war officially ended 9 days after it began. 9 days to destroy the greatest military power the galaxy had ever known. 9 days to reshape the balance of the universe. 9 days to prove that humanity was not a young species to be bullied dot across human space. Celebrations erupted. Soldiers returned home as heroes. Ships that had fought in the shadows were finally shown to the public. The people of Earth learned for the first time how long their government had been preparing, how carefully they had hidden their strength. But in the halls of power, there was no celebration. There was only work. Winning the war had been the easy part. Now came the harder task, building something worth keeping. 1 year had passed since the war. The Grand Conclave station still orbited Verith Prime, but the Great Hall had been transformed. The platforms no longer floated at different heights, with powerful species above and weak ones below. Now they formed a great circle, all at the same level. Equals among equals. Elena Vasquez stood on the central platform, the same spot where Lord Velith had once mocked her species. She wore the white uniform of the new Galactic Council, with the symbol of United Earth on her shoulder. Her title had changed. She was no longer a simple ambassador. She was Secretary General, chosen by vote to lead the Reformed Assembly. Around her, delegates from 112 species waited in silence. Some had been enemies. Some had been oppressors. Some had simply stood by and watched while humanity suffered. But today, they were all here to witness the birth of something new. 1 year ago, this hall was filled with laughter, Vasquez began. Her voice carried to every corner of the chamber. The great powers of the galaxy had decided to put humanity in its place, to take our worlds, to break our spirit, to teach us that the weak must always bow to the strong. She paused, letting the memory hang in the air. You underestimated us. You saw our patience as weakness. You saw our kindness as stupidity. You saw our restraint as cowardice. You were wrong. A gaze swept across the assembly. Some delegates looked down in shame. Others met her eyes with newfound respect. But we did not come here to gloat. We did not fight for revenge or conquest. We fought for something that had been denied to us for 80 years. Respect, equality, the right to exist without fear. She raised her hand, and a hologram appeared above her. It showed a document written in 100 languages. This is the new compact. It is not like the old one. The old compact was built on hierarchy and power. The strong ruled. The weak obeyed. Species were ranked by military might and economic influence. This system has failed. It nearly destroyed us all. She gestured, and the document expanded. The new compact is built on different principles. Every species has one voice, one vote. No vetoes for powerful nations. No special privileges for ancient civilizations. Decisions are made together, or not at all. Technology is shared freely. Scientific advances belong to everyone. No species will be kept weak while others grow strong. Mutual defense is guaranteed. An attack on one member is an attack on all. No species will face extinction alone. The Churan delegate, a new queen who had risen from the civil war, clicked her mandibles nervously. And the Kaveth? What becomes of their dominion? Vasquez's expression remained neutral. The Kaveth dominion no longer exists. Their territory has been reduced to 4 systems around their homeworld. Their military is limited to defense forces only. They may rebuild their civilization, but they will never again rule over others. A murmur ran through the assembly. This was harsh, but fair. The Kaveth had oppressed dozens of species for millennia. They had started a war of aggression against humanity. There had to be consequences. Lord Valeth stands trial before an interspecies court, Vasquez continued. He will answer for his crimes, not just against humanity, but against everyone his government has harmed. His testimony has already revealed atrocities that were hidden for centuries. Mass killings, forced relocations, cultural genocide. These crimes will be documented. They will be remembered. They will never be repeated. She lowered her hand, and the hologram faded. We have all made mistakes. Humanity spent 80 years pretending to be weak. We hid our true nature. We prepared for war in secret. Perhaps that was wrong. Perhaps we should have trusted the galaxy with the truth. She shook her head slowly. But trust must be earned. And you gave us no reason to trust you. The senior Silurian elder rose slowly from their platform. Their ancient voice echoed through the hall. Secretary General, I have lived for 12,000 years. I have watched empires rise and fall. I have seen species reach for the stars and vanish into dust. In all that time, I have never seen what your people have done. The elder moved forward until they stood beside Vasquez. You were given every reason to become monsters. You were mocked, humiliated, threatened with extinction. When you finally revealed your true power, you could have burned the galaxy. You could have taken everything. Instead, you chose mercy. You chose to build rather than destroy. The elder bowed their great head. The Silurian people request a formal alliance with humanity, not as masters and servants, as partners, as friends. We believe you have something to teach us about being strong without being cruel. Vasquez felt tears threatening to form in her eyes. She forced them back. There would be time for emotion later. Now, there was work to do. The alliance is accepted, and it is offered to every species willing to join us. Not through force, not through fear, through choice. Around the hall, delegations began to rise. The Torvine, who had once laughed at human weakness. The merchant guilds, who had cheated human traders for decades. Even the survivors of the Kaveth military. Their proud purple faces marked with shame and hope. One by one, they pledged their support to the new compact. That evening, Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the station. Through the windows, she could see ships from 30 different species orbiting together in peace. A Churan transport flew alongside a human cruiser. A Silurian explorer drifted near a Kaveth cargo vessel. Colors and shapes from across the galaxy, united under a common banner. It is beautiful, is it not? She turned. Captain Dmitry Okonkwo stood behind her, still in his fleet uniform. The man who had destroyed empires looked tired but at peace. It is, Vasquez agreed. I never thought I would see it. They stood together in silence for a moment, watching the ships. Do you think it will last? Okonkwo asked. I do not know. Peace is harder than war. It requires trust, and trust takes generations to build. But I believe we have planted something good today. Whether it grows depends on what we do next. A young aide approached nervously. Secretary General? The Vorth delegation has arrived. They traveled for 6 months to reach us. Their species lives beyond the rim of explored space. They heard about the new compact and wished to join. Vasquez smiled. A species she had never heard of, coming from beyond the edges of the map, drawn by the hope of something better. This was what they had fought for. Tell them they are welcome. Tell them we are honored by their trust. The aide hurried away. Okonkwo watched him go. You know, he said, when I was young, I dreamed of exploring the stars, finding new worlds, meeting new species. Instead, I spent my life preparing for war, building weapons, training soldiers. He turned to face the window. Now the war is over, and I find myself wondering what to do with peace. Vasquez placed a hand on his shoulder. The same thing we have always done. Survive, adapt, build. Humanity has faced extinction 1,000 times. Each time we found a way to keep going. This is no different. We just have more friends now. She looked out at the stars. There is so much we do not know. So much we have not explored. The universe is vast beyond imagination. And now, for the first time in history, we do not have to face it alone. Okonkwo nodded slowly. Then perhaps it was worth it. All the secrecy, all the preparation, all the lives lost. If it led us here, it was worth it, Vasquez said firmly. Not because we won, but because we won the right way. We proved that strength and mercy can exist together. That power does not have to corrupt. That humanity can be fierce without being cruel. She turned back to her work. There were treaties to negotiate, alliances to build, wounds to heal. The galaxy was broken, and it would take generations to fix. But for the first time in 80 years, she believed it could be done. Behind her, the stars continued to shine. Ships continued to drift. Species that had been enemies learned to become friends. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, new worlds waited to be discovered. The old order was dead. The new one had just begun. And at its heart stood humanity, no longer the young species begging for scraps, but builders of a future worth believing in. They had been mocked and threatened and nearly destroyed. They had endured insults and humiliation and calls for their extinction. And they had answered not with vengeance, but with vision. This was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not weapons or technology or military might, but the simple belief that tomorrow could be better than today. And so it was.